Do you love the jungle? I mean, do you really love it? I mean, do you want to, like, marry it? Do you want to trudge around in the jungle for 40 minutes? Do you want to fall in love with the jungle? Well, we've got two movies you'll love.
Cinematic Fantastic.
Plateau, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today.
As you heard, welcome to Cinematic Fantastic. And for one thing, there is one piece of web game media, I guess, that is in my heart. When I think about jungles, I think of Cyber Chase 3, the Eco Haven. Save Eco Haven, I guess. I don't remember the exact subtitle.
Is it a PBS game?
Yes, it's very nostalgic to me. Every time I hear Christopher Lloyd, my soul is healed, I guess.
You're gonna love you're gonna love the Back to the Future series because it's all Christopher Lloyd all the time.
But yeah, like I remember, like there was some like disc sorting puzzles where like you had to put these like into like a spaceship, and I couldn't get them in the right order. And there was also this pyramid puzzle at the end that was just mind-boggling to me as a child.
Was there a part where you have to?
And I'll be able to beat it easier.
Was there a part where you have to climb a mountain and then go find a rocket and retrieve some motherboards out of it or something?
No, because in fact, motherboard usually like just is just usually getting hacked. So like, not even like
you can't really. Well, you know that doesn't make sense. You can't really hack a motherboard. You can hack the operating system. Okay, we're getting nerdy here, but you can hack the operating system with the software on it.
All I have to say is UFI, and we're out. Unless you're like, ooh, is that ultra extreme fighting?
UEFI, yeah. No.
Like wrestling? Sounds like a wrestling thing, like the UF.
Oh yeah,
or something. Today we are doing The Bride of the Gorilla and Lost Continent, two movies that have some
both
sort
from
of jungle in
1951.
them, and they're both low budget. Both of which were filmed in under like 14 days, I'm pretty sure. I think Bride
I don't remember
exact 7 days, an exact week. Though Lon Chaney Jr., who was in that movie, was doing a tour at the time, so he milked it. It's like you're supposed to do a tour for like it for like 18 months.
I thought it was like yeah.
Like
and the movie did not. But the movie didn't do great. So yeah. So both these movies came out in 1951. The order of the
African Queen and A Streetcar Named Desire, the Showboat remake movie, I guess, because there was like a Showboat other movie.
These are
Alice
all great.
in Wonderland, Rashomon, Distant Drums. For those who don't know, the Wilhelm scream originated from there, though it was popularized by the Charge at Feather River, 1953, where it actually got the name the Wilhelm scream because the character named Wilhelm. That's 1951.
You're naming all these really famous, really well-known for being great movies.
These are well-known for being lambasted.
Yeah. Well,
by the press.
I don't know. Lost Continent for me has its issues, but it's got some elements in it that were good. It just didn't execute well.
Yeah, we'll sort of get into it, but first of all, we'll explain that we made a little bit of a mix-up. Neither of us could remember who was supposed to do the plot, so we both decided to research the production.
Yeah.
That's like, I thought you were doing the plot. It's like, I thought
we will do our best to muddle through.
We'll try our best. Neither of us have written a summary of this movie. We'll go off the noggin.
I'll pretend that I have been dosed with the plant of evil, put into some tea. for me, and so I'm hallucinating this plot, and then you are maybe coming under the influence of like radioactive mist, and you're coughing and losing consciousness.
Sure. Let's go with that.
And I'll try not to fall in love with the jungle.
This is truly what a podcast is when you mess up. It's not truly like horrible, you know.
Is it really a mess up? Yeah.
It's
not any worse than these movies.
It's a chance for us to be a little bit fun. So, yeah, this movie starts out with an opening crawl, just like Star Wars and Rocket Ship
movie?
XM.
Are we talking about Lost Continent first or Bride of the Gorilla?
Let's flip a coin. Let's flip a coin. Do you have a coin on you?
I have got one better than that. It's a 20-sided die. Will that work? You can say
sure. Anything above 10 is 2. Anything below 10 is 1.
All right. So what do you call?
Let's call 1 is Lost Continent and 2 is Bride of the Gorilla.
Okay. 12. So Bride of the Gorilla.
Bride of the Gorilla. Alrighty then.
We need to do everything this way. We could be like, so this movie stars. Hold on. Christopher Lloyd. No, we roll the die and we look at a table. It's like random generated. No, okay, I'm sorry. If you guys can't relate, sorry, we're role players. All right, back to this. So, this movie stars Raymond Burr, famous for his role
first
as
of all,
Perry
to get
Mason.
this out of the way, this movie was both directed and written by Kurt Sudmak. A unique case we had talked about, in The Wolfman, some of the other Universal stuff that he did. And I did not have super high an opinion of him for the way that he wrote. Was just it doesn't fit.
And I have to say,
it's good on paper, but in execution, it's unnatural. Just a little bit.
I would say the same thing about his directing. It's unnatural. Some would say unnatural.
Also, this movie was in fact Kurt Sudmak in The Wolfman. He originally had the idea to make it a more psychological tale, where the Wolfman was in his
happening
brain.
inside his mind. That's what I was thinking about.
This movie was his rectification of that. Would he be able to accomplish this idea, or, well, I mean, he did accomplish the idea. He did it, but did he do it, or did he?
All right, so I'm gonna go over the plot real quick, okay? So this movie takes place primarily in Latin America, I guess somewhere South America, Mexico,
bougie
maybe.
Place.
Right. So there's a plantation, right? And Raymond Burr plays Barney Chavez. And I guess the fact that Raymond Burr has dark hair and slightly tan skin, that he gets to play, I guess, somebody of Latin American descent. Oh, okay. So anyway, Raymond Burr, this is, we will get to see him again in a couple other roles going forward. We'll talk about those.
Namely Godzilla.
The American.
He was the star of the Godzilla movies.
Well, let's put it this way. There's Gojira, which was the Japanese version, and then when they moved it over to America, they added a character named Steve Martin, not the comedian, not the actor, but that character's name is Steve Martin, played by Raymond Burr.
If Yu-Gi-Oh went to America and it was not Yu-Gi-Oh as the main character, that would be what it's like.
Right, you mean like what 4Kids did. We talked about framing stories when we talked about Cabinet of Dr. Caligari early in our seasons, and this has a framing. They made it a framing story of a journalist who is coming to research, what this creature did and what happened. But
now,
anyway,
do you want to? Yeah. I noticed one thing. That this movie begins almost the exact same way as Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn Gorilla. This opening, it starts out with credits over this dolly jungle shot heading 9 o'clock. Then there's some animals, and then there's this pivot shot of the jungle around, or rather like this manor.
Well, guess what? If you look up the name,
that's basically how the Brooklyn Gorilla movie begins.
Look up the producer, and I think that the same the same uncredited the same uncredited producer did Brooklyn Gorilla as did this, and I wonder if they used the same costume. It sure looks like it. So here's what happened. He works at a plantation. He kind of has the hots for the wife of his boss. His boss's name is Klaus Van Gelder.
Oh, what did you think of what did you think of this prologue statement where it's talking about, like, nature will take over everything, nature, like, as young as day, as old as time, bittersweet and strange, finding you can change, learning you were wrong, It's got that sentiment.
You got me. You got me with that one, man. You got me. Okay, that was
Beauty
good.
and the Beast.
Have you been thinking about that for a long time? Like, I'm going to say this.
I thought of it while watching. I am my own Mystery Science Theater.
He doesn't like the boss. The boss doesn't like him. He likes the wife, who is Dina Van Gelder, played by Barbara Payton. And she's attractive, and that's why she was hired, I'm sure, for this role. Anyway,
I did call her. Let's see. At one point in the script, I did call her Laura Croft. So, yeah.
So, there's a situation where Barney Chavez and his boss are out in the forest, and the boss gets bit by a poisonous snake, aka it's just a python. It's not a poisonous snake, but pythons were non-venomous, so they could get them to do whatever they want. Anyway, but Barney doesn't do anything to stop it. He just sits there and watches him die. And who is able to see but this old woman? She's like a witch, kind of. Her name is Al Long. It was Agatha Al Long? No? Okay.
Yeah, she puts a curse on him. Okay, like, the story is, he loves the blonde lady, but the black-haired lady, who is her daughter.
Lorena or whatever. She
got dumped, and so
she works.
The mother is also like, and you've like been a terrible person. I think you killed somebody, and like they were talking about earlier, like it's very Kurt Sudmak when he says like, oh, we're all slaves, aren't we here? But I'm free, not free with bars for windows. Like some of the conversations in this movie are very like. It's very theologically built, and it's like just trampolining between thoughts, and that's good on
it's
paper
very
as
soapy.
A writing.
It's very soap opera. Would you see that it's kind of? Would you say that it's kind of soap opera-ish? This whole thing.
I'm constantly parsing what they're saying. Like Kurt Sudmak at this like tiny little thing is saying something big about his thoughts on like nature and stuff. Love
the guy
his
reads
bestial animal instincts, and that's what's about to be
The boss reads from the Bible before they eat. It says the heart is deceitful above all things, I think. And I was like, okay, he's hitting us over the head with the obvious irony, here's the theme.
And hitting him over the head.
Yeah, the heart, and he talks about like the heart is like a savage animal or something.
Yeah, bestial with animal instincts.
Yeah, and I'm like, message? Yeah, he's
Isn't it like a dude later in this movie? He's like, I sometimes feel as I don't speak my people's language. And I'm like, okay. There's a thing where it's like, after I returned from university to the superstitions, it only served to confuse me. My native mind is filled with the superstitions, and my legal mind was developed through books. How can this be? And I'm like...
There was didn't I tell you about that movie that
Lon Chaney...
Didn't I tell you that movie that had Lon Chaney Jr. in it? She-Wolf of London? And Lon Chaney Jr. was in a movie with one of them that was in that. And it was about this woman who was, she was being tortured because she's from the country where they believe in superstitions all the time. And she was like, and I was like, when he's talking about superstition, I couldn't help but think about that movie.
But yeah, this point is where they're like, he's sussing them out like almost immediately. He's like, you killed him and you cursed him. And I'm like, okay, yeah, immediately?
Taro, but see, it's not just a curse. It's like this plant of evil, like I mentioned before, and he gets put into his drink. He drinks it, and it makes him kind of sick or hallucinate. And then he starts going out into the jungle, and he starts saying, "I can hear everything, and I can see everything." And you think, "Okay."
Oh, by the way, a wedding is going on while this is happening, or rather, like, I think it's finished.
Yeah,
I'm like, the
he
issue
gets married.
With this is with the momentous occasion that is a wedding, is doing it before establishing who the people are. You really just are like, oh, we begin with a wedding, And it's like, okay, but I know none of the people who've come in, the guests and all the
I've
things.
barely gotten to know these people, right?
I barely gotten to know the husband and the wife. Like, you have to talk to them for like 4 million hours before the actual ceremony.
So there becomes these animal killings too that coincide with Barney's forays out into the jungle. And
By the way, I think we're already halfway through the movie at this point when he turns into the gorilla for the first time, or he sees himself as a gorilla in the reflection.
Well, he sees himself in a mirror
30 minutes through.
as a guy in a gorilla costume, and he punches the mirror at the same time as the guy punches back. It's great. Great as in, what are we watching here? So the local farmers, Taro, played Lon Chaney Jr., he talks to people, and they say, oh, it's Sukurath. And I looked up information on it, and there's actually a creature that in real life they call
Sisimoto, or the Sisimite, the Sisimita.
Sisimite, yeah. They call it the Mexican Bigfoot.
Mexican Bigfoot. I called it the Gorilla Chupacabra. Because that was like Chupacabra
Gorilla
is the
Cabra.
same country.
Chuparilla. Which, that doesn't really work.
One of the many variations on the mythological South American species of giants called the patageo. Pata is foot in Spanish, which was where that was invented in like the 1500s.
Yeah.
When King Arthur took place in my canon. Anyway, we have to go back to the Connecticut Yankee episode.
Well, you're trying to Connecticut everything, huh?
Yep.
All right, so it's more
in
Guatemala.
The 50s, about this time, the craze for the Yeti started, and so they were comparing it to the Yeti, and so this could like technically be like the first Bigfoot film, I guess. Like, what if there isn't another?
Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a movie
like
called The Abominable
because
Snowman.
this is like the Mexican Bigfoot. It's one of the Bigfoots, and Bigfoot
Big
would just
feet.
be right there in the north, and then there'd be the
Proud
Yetis
feet.
going on as well.
Right.
So it's like it started around here. Do you want to know how to defeat one?
I think there's 4 different ways. I think.
Yeah. Well, it has 4 fingers on each hand and backwards facing feet.
And no thumb. And when he attacks,
thumb.
he goes for the
He's
thumb
he's
first.
a cartoon. He's a cartoon character because he only has 4 fingers.
His feet are pointing backwards, and you have to like walk in a circle, and it confuses him or something.
Yeah, if you dance in a circle, it'll try to follow you. However, he'll trip to because of its bad feet. I'm like, how did God design such a creature?
God
that
did
it
not
would
design
walk
it.
around
It's
and
Satan.
trip and fall.
It's Satan's creations.
How is this a predator?
Oh, and if you have a dog, you have a dog by your side, it helps. And
Yeah.
also water. Be near water or lakes.
Afraid of water, making a path of footprints will cause it to lose track of the prey and begin to follow its own, think it's someone else. And to set fire to its long hair is the ultimate way to get rid of it. Basically, it's dumb. It's the idea. And it has luscious locks.
It's got lovely hair.
But I mean, like, this thing came onto the earth and like, natural selection didn't kill it or something. Or, like,
it uses Pantene Pro V exclusively. And so that's why its hair, it's herbal essences, I guess. Or herbal essences is what makes its hair so luscious.
Aren't there, like, some creatures who can, like, bend their feet both ways? I don't remember what that's called.
Digitigrade.
Yeah, like creatures like those.
Yeah,
I think there are some.
Yeah, I think kangaroos aren't they digigrade? Yeah, right.
That's interesting because most of the time
they're-
they hop, they don't move their legs much.
They're not digitigrade, they're didgeridoos, because that's Australian. Anyway, so all right, so to sum this up, okay?
Throughout this movie, he's like, oh, I love you and stuff, and then we go like cinematic epic mode when like he is like grabbing her. Yeah, one thing though is he does say the Sukura is a symbol, and I'm like, you're spoiling a bit that it's psychological because off the bat you're like, it's a symbol. I'm like, okay,
But he's a demon. But see,
they talk a lot, passionate romance. The witch lady who curses him like appears a couple times. There was one line that I was like, they zoom out on the commissioner when he says the coroner signs the papers, not me. It's like, oh yeah, exactly. It zooms out. I'm like, is there significance to that line? I don't know.
I think he's saying that's the last signature
Okay, what
you
would
ever
you
make.
think if you
No,
were in
the
this
last
situation?
signature. No, William. The last signature you ever make is the coroner signs your death certificate. Is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
It's kind of morbid, but I think he just knows. Now,
Let's think about
said-
this situation over the course of this movie.
yeah,
My husband I'm pretending to be the wife here. My
Okay,
husband
okay.
has started to develop this idea where he is running around in the jungle. There's some deaths happening. He's talking about the jungle being his home, and he's
loves
going
the
out
jungle.
having like
he's in
fevers
love
and
with
stuff.
the jungle.
Yeah,
He's
and
more-
he's,
he's more-
he's becoming more and more insane. I would be a lot more grave about this situation, and I would be infuriated him because I'm like, we just got married, or I'm getting married, and you decide to do this. I can't like.
Well, he said
divorce you right now.
she said she gave him an ultimatum and said you have to choose me or the jungle, and he goes,
Yeah, she
"The
literally
jungle."
just like, please listen. I love you. You're tired. Come on, become sane again. And that's all she says to. I can feel the jungle inside of me. It's my home. I would slap him. I would be like,
also
we just got
the
married.
doctor guy, Dr. Viet, whatever his name, Dr. Viet, he is in love with her too.
Oh
And he
yeah,
said-
there's
with
one
the
scene
wife.
where he walks in and he gives her like this white drink, and he goes, drink it, and she's like, what is it? Then he says, drink it now, it'll calm you. Then she drinks it. If anyone hands me something that I have to ask what it is, and I'm replied to with just drink it, just no. I'm not gonna go ahead and drink
That
that.
reminds me of She-Wolf of London, where they're constantly saying, drink all this milk. Yeah, drink all this warm milk.
Even if he happens to be a doctor, I want to know exactly what on earth you're giving me. Like, this is a casual situation. I can still go. I don't like. What is it that you have given me? Like, it could be anything, any side effect.
The last scene of this movie, Barney goes into the jungle. The wife follows him, screams, and Dr. Viet follows too with a gun for some reason. He's automatically got a shotgun in his hand, and he goes out into the jungle.
And we do see the gorilla carrying her in just one shot. That's like the only shot we really see the gorilla in.
Okay.
So
here's the
is
thing.
it
Here's
real?
the thing.
Just because we
Wait,
saw that
whenever they show the gorilla,
it's usually from a perspective.
it's his perspective
It's his
looking at his
perspective, yeah.
hands, or he looks in the mirror and sees the gorilla.
But
or he
then
looks
the
in the
one
he
case
looks in
where
the
we
water
get
and saw
the
he
shot
looks in
of-
his reflection
from a third,
and saw a gorilla.
Yeah. But then, at this penultimate scene, we do see one shot of him as the gorilla carrying her, and that's like, is this real then?
That's what he sees, I think.
But ultimately, yeah, the film ends with him getting downed and seeing himself as gorilla in the reflection.
It's kind of a letdown, especially all of the promo publicity photos have him already
It's
as
a
an
good
ape.
idea for a movie, though. It sort of grows on you.
It's
a little
it's like it's a were-gorilla movie using the psychological element that Kurt Sudmak wanted to do in The Wolfman.
At the same time, it's so uneventful, and the characters are so shallow.
Lots
They're
of
just
padding.
like rhetoric
but the
of
dialogue is
philosophical.
so cringy and so over the top that it kind of makes the movie for me. And everybody's so serious about everything. And Raymond Burr is a good actor, but he does what he can to pull this off. But yeah.
I'm like, ultimately, when I said he transforms into the gorilla, and we're already halfway through the movie, and it's like 1 hour, that's where you're like, yeah, okay.
Okay.
If the whole gimmick is he turns into a gorilla, you might want to start that a little bit earlier.
So I didn't watch the riff tracks at all. So I don't know
Neither
if
did
they
I.
said, but this is what I thought of while I was watching it. I said, Bride of the Gorilla starring Raymond Furr. I also said, oh look, it's Harry Mason.
Yeah, that's
That's it's a joke on Perry Mason. Anyway, I knew Raymond Burr growing up because on the TV channel that they showed Andy Griffith's show and all that on, they did Perry Mason, and Perry Mason was like a lawyer, and he had a secretary or whatever administrative assistant that he worked with named Della Street, and he had this guy. God, goodness, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but it was his private investigator guy, and he would always send that guy out to go shake people down and find things out. It would have famous guest stars.
would be
Like,
interesting
even-
to like turn that into like an A plot, B plot thing where like, the private investigator is out on the field while the lawyer is handling things in the court, like a court session.
They
a
did
very
that.
tense court session
And
is
it
happening
worked really
during
well.
a very tense like fist fight.
Yeah,
that
and
sort of
there's
stuff
even
is great.
I've even got a clip I can show it here. Of,
I gotta see more like court dramas or whatever, and if they are that like, there's got to be some of those out there.
I've got a clip. I got a clip here
Objection.
I've got a clip here that's got Perry Mason in a scene with actor Leonard Nimoy as a guest star on one of the Perry Mason episodes. I'm talking about Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock. I'm sure that Perry Mason was able to tear apart his flawless logic.
Exactly.
But anyway, so I got a little factoid about this movie. Apparently Barney Chavez's character wasn't the only one obsessed with Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's husband was very jealous of her. She was very beautiful, but he was very jealous of her and thought she was cheating on him.
Oh yeah, I think they caught him together.
With Woody Strode, who is the actor who played the deputy or something like that, or he's an African-American gentleman. I remember seeing Woody Strode in some other movies. So I was like, oh, look, it's Woody Strode.
Edward G. Robinson Jr. was going to be on this.
Is that Edward G. Robinson's Sr.'s son?
I think so.
Mr.
But he got in a bit of a pickle.
Mr. Gangster
with
himself.
A bad check. Right.
Yeah, he wrote a bad check, and so they got him in trouble.
And so they fired him.
Well, that's not as bad as getting, as what happened with some other actors and actresses when they got caught with marijuana. I mean, that was
literally
worse.
One tweet is enough to do that nowadays, and that's why you probably do a different platform. Like one tweet. Raymond Burr was in Rear Window as well. That's a Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, was he the bad guy? He was the bad guy doing the killing. That
he got some
Jimmy
good
Stewart.
roles.
Jimmy Stewart's character spies across the way and sees Raymond Burr killing. I think.
But I'm honestly mixed on this one. It's like the movie's boring, the idea is good, the writing is good, but it's also bad. He was doing something that he was trying to execute, but then he failed. Really, I mean,
yeah.
The marketing in this movie didn't do favors either. Her clothes torn away, screaming in terror. I'm like, that's not the movie at all. That, honestly, you should... I mean, the movie was going to be called The Face in the Water. I'm like, you shouldn't spoil your movie, but at the same time, you shouldn't, pull an Earthbound. That's a really obscure one. Pull an Earthbound and completely reface the movie in the marketing. In case you didn't know, it's they refaced it to make it, gross and to have, flatulence jokes in the marketing, and it's like, this is the stinkiest movie ever, or sorry, the stinkiest game ever on your Super Nintendo, and it's like, why did you do that?
Wait, you Earthbound, not Earthworm Jim, but Earthbound,
yes, and did not do well.
I don't remember
that is why you make your marketing match.
I thought Earthbound. I can't remember had Earthbound. I remember as a really good RPG, and you.
It is, but the marketing was stinkiest game ever because there's flatulence and stinky.
I don't remember any flatulence at all.
Yeah, well, it was it's really obscure, part of the history. I guess, is that you had to be in a very specific place to see some of that.
Well, I don't want to. So,
yeah, the stinkiest game ever is probably, you don't want to
Speaking of
that.
something else, speaking of some gas that can kill you, The Lost Continent came out in 1951. How far we have fallen. 30 years before this, at least, we had The Lost World.
And this movie is basically equivalent to The Lost World?
It's trying hard. So much better effects in Lost World. Think of the Allosaurus just chewing and the kind of blood-looking stuff in its saliva in its
spittle,
mouth.
And the gore meat things.
The effects in Lost Continent look like a 4-year-old.
And the dinosaurs were so articulate. In this one, they're more toyetic. That's the feel. They're more toyetic and cute, while the previous one, they're more, sculpted. They're a little bit weird looking.
Well, these guys look like plasticine. I don't know if you've seen like real claymation. It looks really, like Gumby looking stuff.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Gumby was in the 50s, and then I might just think about watching that. And then the 60s was a Rankin Bass.
Yes,
So that's sort of what
that's
stop
true.
motion was at the time.
Back in the 80s or 90s, they had Mr. Bill was on SNL, was like a little skit that they would do. I remember there was a claymation thing that was, it was a Mark Twain. It was really weird Mark Twain thing that had like combinations of some of his characters, like from The Stranger, and it even had a thing that it's really cool. I need to show that to you. It's on YouTube or something. It's a.
So the Lost Continent, I'm pretty sure basically the gist is there's a missile flying really high up and is broken the sound barrier by 300 miles.
Yeah,
that's about 700 miles, and it's
atomic powered.
It's 1,000 miles high and 1,000 miles per hour. I'm like, that has exceeded the sound barrier by 1.5.
And it's missing. It was designed by Russian scientist Rostov, played by John Hoyt. He's working for the United States government.
By the way, you want to know something cool about John Hoyt? We'll see him in When Worlds Collide, so
yeah,
that'll be cool.
I'm reading the book right now.
Yeah, he was Brutus in Julius Caesar. But the fun thing is, he was in the Star Trek pilot as Philip Boyce.
He was the doctor, I think, before Leonard McCoy.
Yeah, and that's one of the Star 3 roles, is the doctor, the scientist, and the captain. So he was in a couple episodes of The Outer Limits and the Planet of the Apes 1974 series.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I remember
Was
that...
it different from the movies?
Yeah, they kind of retconned a couple little things. I didn't think it fit really in. I was more of a fan of the movies than I was a fan of the TV show, because I thought the TV show, I thought they kind of just went, they're taking advantage of the Planet of the Apes craze at the time. And I was just kind of like,
would think so. Yeah, because they're like apes. Yes.
Well, it didn't really. I thought
he was
that
Sire Damra in Battlestar Galactica, 1978.
Yeah.
You remember Sire Damra?
No, but I do remember
he was
that
probably like 2 episodes.
There's a group of actors that are that have been on a lot of different shows. There's actors that have been on both Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek.
He's pretty stacked in terms of sci-fi.
Yes. Also, one of the guys in here, the actor's name is Whit Bissell. He was in both.
You mean Bit Whistle?
No, Whit Bissell. He was
Make a big name. Bit Whistle.
He was in. I was a teenage werewolf, and I was a teenage Frankenstein.
Interesting.
He might have also been in Star Trek too. I think in Star Trek the original series. He played Mr. Lurie, I think. Am I right? He was in the Trouble with Tribble as Tribble's episode. Am I right?
That's a classic. If you're in a classic episode, like the Brain What Is Brain lady, if she were still alive, would be rolling in dough.
Also, one of the actors in this was Hugh Beaumont, and I was like, I don't know if anything else he's been in, but I remember one thing. He was the dad in Leave It to Beaver. Ward Cleaver was the dad in Leave It to Beaver, and I think that was him. Hugh Beaumont.
Doesn't that sound like a guy who would just cut right to the business? And then there's Cesar Romero, who would be Joker, in the Batman 1960s. He'd also be Cortez in the Thin Man. Oh, there's
here's the thing. Here's the thing
about this point. There's an opening crawl in the Rocket Ship XM and in this movie, and I was like, wait a moment. I guess Star Wars wasn't original because they started doing the opening crawl a lot.
Yeah,
they literally did Star Wars.
Wait.
Oh, and there's Theremin in this movie too.
Yes, who made this movie? Lippert.
I think we saw him in Rocket Ship XM.
Lippert
They
made
reused
both
footage from Rocket Ship XM, didn't they?
They did the rocket that fired off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit funny how they used a lot of stuff from Rocket Ship XM.
Yeah, and also that we have a PRC connection here because the Neufeld brothers, Sam and Sigmund, did this movie, and they were big PRC guys. I think they were selling off PRC when they started moving into doing this.
Oh, thank goodness. In other words, the smallest...
That's why this movie looks so cheap. This movie looks so cheap.
Cheapest company ever, PRC, production.
the majority of the budget of this movie was probably styrofoam.
Yeah, this movie had more of a budget than Bride of the Gorilla, I think, but it's still not that high. These were both very low budget.
So why is this movie like Lost World? Well, I'll tell you. They're going after the rocket, and they have to get
they always
Romero.
worry about the security of the country in science fiction movies.
Yeah, and Russians, and the bad guys can't.
Yeah,
get
we get a lot of
these
personalities. Oh, I did note that the plane, when arriving, becomes a dual propeller plane when it goes for gas and it rolls into the hangar.
Oh,
because
were they using like stock footage?
Then when it goes right back out, it's a jet, a black jet.
It turned into stock footage, right?
Yeah, the plane does go down in the middle of a lost continent. Some of the things you would think of this happening, the pilot didn't die of heart attack, like in Hatchet. Bruce Willis is not in this movie. So you might think it's an EMP blaster, based on either it detected an onboard virus. There's a child to sacrifice for a necromancy ritual, or maybe it happened because Desmond didn't push the button. Like, you were right there.
What? These references.
Yeah, okay.
I know.
So
was it Lost?
Yes. The last one is Lost.
You're referencing Lost? Okay, yeah, because Desmond has to press the button every so often.
And then Bruce Willis and Die Hard.
Right. They land on the far side of an island, and the only people left on the island, I think, is a chieftain guy and his daughter, played by Aquanetta. You remember Aquanetta?
Yeah, her
she
only
was the one
roles
who was
would be
almost...
Jungle Ladies and like the sort of Monte Cristo. I think Felice was the name.
Oh, she was going to be.
Was she a good role? Sort of Monte Cristo.
I don't remember, but I remember she played the captive ape woman a lot, and she never talked.
Yeah, she's like the earth tremble.
Well, she was always mute, and then once she starts talking, you're like, yeah, that's right. You're not a good actress.
Well, you were only in 10 movies, so.
Well, I have something to say about Aquanetta real quick. Her big claim to fame, her name was actually Mildred Davenport. That's her real name. Really plain kind of name sounding. They always gave people kind of cool names, like Aquanetta. And she looked slightly ethnic, right? And they were like, oh, well, she's the Venezuelan volcano. No, she's not Venezuelan. You know what they found out, though? Modern people traced back her mom and dad, and they were African American. So she was a very light-skinned African American girl, and she actually got more work by what's called passing. She passed as another race, because if you said you were black, they were like, okay, there's no roles for you. Sorry, you have to be the maid.
Yeah, because it's still the 50s.
Yeah, you had to be the maid, or you had to be a slave or something like that. And
no. That's a bit of an issue. They don't upset the natives. The natives lead them to the volcano. It's a volcano, right? Or is it just a mountain?
I think it's like it's a mountainous area with mist at the top. It's like a mesa.
Yeah, and then they spend 20 minutes climbing the mountain.
You see them climbing the same curve multiple times.
Yes, they do.
But the music is it's got an interesting theme, but they play that theme.
I did put halfway. We're already halfway through the movie. Are there going to be dinosaurs in your dinosaur park?
And your John, are there going to be dinosaurs in your movie? Yeah,
the closest
exactly.
thing is they hide in a cave during a storm, and then there's like this adorable looking pet lizard that they randomly throw in. I'm like, oh, they put in a real lizard as the first lizard?
There was a movie that came out previous to this. It was remember we talked about 1 million BC? Remember the real lizardmation where they glue stuff to lizards and make them fight?
They do these a lot in the movies for, because it's a real lizard. You get to make it look huge. But it's like these are very tame lizards.
They did that once in this movie, and then from here on out it's stop motion animation.
Yes. I was wondering, why did they do that once, though? Why not just, have all of it? But yeah, the most of the movie, they're just climbing a mountain. And it's very exciting. One of them falls off due to heart attack. I told you there would be a heart attack in this movie, because just like Hatchet.
Was that the one? Was that the one where the guy falls through the? It's like an overhead shot. The guy falls through the mist.
Yeah, he falls down because his
a
heart
great
died.
shot.
His heart.
There you go. That's one green flag for the green tinted flag for this movie. Reminded me of General Zod, where he falls into
I think they did have two different sets where it was just what they would climb mostly, and then the one where they put the mist on.
Well, wait, what do they have the whole time? They have a Geiger counter, and that Geiger counter is ticking, and it's like in the top, it's like ticking it's like going all the way to 10 or 11, and they're like, is it safe? And the guy goes, it's, as long as we don't spend too much time, it's perfectly fine. It's so radioactive that...
Yeah, okay, when they get up there and it tints green and everything, and they find, like, volcanic dust and a lot of jungle foliage and steaming pools as powerful as a stockpile of hydrogen bombs, apparently. He goes, like, you know what the atom bomb did to the atmosphere? That's definitely what caused this jungle to happen. And I'm like, yeah, I sure do. It fills up with radioactive particles and fallout and greenhouse gases and debris and toxic oxides like nitrogen and carbon oxides and soot and smoke and ions from the explosion that cause electromagnetic interference. And
yes.
That's a very livable atmosphere of death.
No, it's not.
I've seen Barefoot again. I know.
They said
they said it's so. Again, but
they said it's so Hey, William. They said it's so radioactive that evolution has stopped in its tracks, and so that's why all these creatures are unchanged for bajillions of years.
Yeah, they thought radioactivity was safe then, because it's like it doesn't entirely wipe out a place.
But this is This is after Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where radiation coming from a
and it's
bomb
like I've seen
destroyed a whole city.
Scenes of Barefoot again. Haven't seen the whole thing yet, but where it obviously is a very livable atmosphere when they
you gotta wait a
the
couple
people and they turn into skeletons.
Radiation does really. We learned radiation does things like mutate people and give them powers, or it can make you sterile,
or it can give the environment powers, and it's like that's not true.
It can also make the air look like lime green jello or spearmint.
You know what the funniest things about this is that they're like, oh, maybe we're gonna betray each other because this uranium is here. The master guy who they're suspicious of, he wants the nuclear power plants to be built, and he's gonna betray the others so that he can give something to the world. So that nuclear power plants can be fueled on America and the whole society prosper.
Aren't they also?
He didn't say he wanted to make money from the plants. Well, I mean the nuclear plants, not the actual plants.
Yeah.
That he didn't say he wanted to make his own factories and make money off of it. Really, I don't know if he explicitly said that at all. So it's like he easily could have been like, I want to build a bunch of nuclear power plants for the benefit of society, not specifically for me to make money. But I guess they're gonna betray each other for who gets to make the nuclear mines to make money.
But he's not quite. He's a Russian Jew whose family was killed in the Holocaust.
Yeah, I was like, how on earth were you able to get oppressed by both powers? By both
well, here's
the bad
other, here's the other part too.
Basically.
I think that comes from the Neufeld brothers, who were Jewish and had that ancestry, and then maybe that inspired them to write this character this way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool. But do we see enough dinosaurs?
We see like a couple of triceratops.
A brontosaurus
which are all really cute
against a tree.
By the way,
yeah.
The triceratops are really adorable. All the rest of them,
they're really cute.
They're really cute.
One guy, the comic relief guy, gets gored when he's not watching what he's doing. He gets gored in the back and gets
Yeah, they thought he was gonna go out.
He gets murked. Yeah.
So throughout this movie, they keep smoking cigarettes. They're like, yeah, sure, heal up with the cigarette, like it's a potion. Like it's a potion in D&D.
I don't think they're smoking it for healing. That's like
they literally
greater,
one of the dudes who is like the comic
potion.
relief. He dies at the end, and he gives them a cigarette. But he dies anyway, and I was like, "That's so funny." Is the last thing you do is to give him a cigarette?
He's trying to he's trying to ease his.
Yes. But they're constantly doing that a whole lot through this movie. I was like, always the cigarettes.
Hey William, wouldn't it be great if he spit out the cigarette and said, "That'll give me cancer"? And they're like, "So will the air. The air is giving you cancer right now, buddy, and you're caring about a cigarette."
But yeah, they do basically are just traveling through like the bit of the jungle, they do a bit of traveling through there, and then they travel through this desert area, they encounter some dinosaurs, They shoot him down, and that's like really
They're like
all the
bulletproof,
content.
almost.
And the
They're
guy
almost
dies to
bulletproof.
the brontosaurus or allosaurus.
There's 2 triceratops that are fighting,
Yes.
and he gets.
I think
hit
there's
by-
3 total in the movie.
And just like whenever people landed on the island where Son of Kong was, Kiko or whatever, when they landed there, they started a chain reaction that would destroy the island.
Okay.
That's exact.
What did
That's
you think
exactly
of
what
this
happens
ending?
here.
The mountain is coming down in an earthquake, and they have a whole sequence where they're running out of the village, and I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool way to end it. I couldn't.
Something's happening, but it's kind of Wish.com King Kong though.
Well, no, it's entirely different because it's like, you get the effects that's all like splitting apart. Well, I mean, there are a bunch of people like shaking the leaves because I could see like a guy's arms while he was shaking the. I was like, okay.
I saw like wires. I saw wires moving the.
Yeah, but they were like shaking everything, and like as they were going, and I'm like, actually, now you think about this whole movie is traveling. They travel up a mountain, then they travel to a jungle, and then they travel to a desert.
Okay, it's 40 minutes until you actually see the dinosaurs.
And then they do barely anything with the dinosaurs. Where's my dinosaurs
Yep.
in my dinosaur movie?
I was just wondering something. In the promotional photos, it's got is Hillary Brooke and Aquanetta. And Aquanetta's barely in this. So they're trying to use, lady appeal, try to get the guys to go, hey.
Yeah, and she's not even in the film. She disappears after 5 minutes.
Sir, not appearing in this film. And that's it. So, Dunzo.
Wasn't that just a baby in a night
Yes.
costume?
in Monty Python, the Holy
Imagine
Grail.
they marketed the whole movie around the baby.
No. It's great. It's like, and then they said Sir Robin, who bravely ran away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
one funny thing is Stephen King in his Dark Tower book. Now that's the name of the series, but the 7th book is called The Dark Tower, just like the series.
It's the gunslinger. Yeah.
Jake Chamber. Do you know that character?
Yeah, it's a young kid. Yeah.
His deepest fear was being scared by this movie, and that gets exploited for whatever on Stephen King does with that. They get like their fears turned to real life, I guess. I think, and that's becomes real life. I think it's funny he's scared of this film in particular. This film.
Okay.
Like, okay, yeah. Special effects were credited to Augie Lohman, but recent research, as per an article in Film Facts 105 that came out in March 2005, posits that the stop motion for the pterodactyl, brontosaurs, and triceratops were contracted by Lepere from Edward Nesor and were likely the actual uncredited work of Jay Baylor and sculptor Henry Lyon, who worked for Nesor at the time. They were the likely duo who worked on The Beast of Hollow Mountain. And you might wonder what that is. It's a cowboy movie where a dino is getting to the cows and they have to rustle it up.
There's a better cowboy western movie with dinosaurs, The Valley of Gwangi. Yeah.
Yeah, the perfect combination,
way
though.
better.
Cowboys and dinosaurs. Why were we playing all that in the backyards instead?
I
That's
would agree.
problematic.
I would agree. This movie, as soon as it
it's boring.
It's padding, lots of padding. Both these movies were boring, had lots of padding, but there's elements.
At first, I was like, well,
like.
maybe this is based on like some Jules Verne novel, and it is a very Jules Vernean sort of thing to do, like going to the center of the earth. But then again, there was so much more to that. Well, it's a movie as well, probably a couple movies.
The German title of this movie, I think, references Jules Verne, but there's no Jules Verne. Like they're trying to. But that happened a lot.
Yeah,
They
this
used to
movie,
call
however, isn't actually really based on that.
Godzilla movies in Germany would use the word Frankenstein instead of Godzilla. That's funny.
That's okay. When did he become a lizard? That's got to be some people running through their brain.
They're just.
Through their
I
brains.
don't know.
Like I watched Young Frankenstein and I expected him to be a lizard. Why is he balancing on his tail to do a sweep attack?
I do know one thing. Germans love David Hasselhoff. That's an SNL joke. I don't know if you know that. But anyway.
It gets some sort of stereotype. All Germans like Christopher Lloyd.
So I think of the Jokers out there, I think that most people put Cesar Romero as number 5.
He's kooky.
My quick question to you.
I
Okay,
haven't
so I would-
seen a lot of the series,
I would
but
do
he's kooky.
I would do Heath Ledger, Mark Hamill, Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson played the Joker in 1989. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That would make sense.
That's the one with Michael Keaton as Batman. Yeah, that's the Tim Burton
Here's
one.
Joker.
Yeah, funny. No, but he goes, "Where do they get a load of me?" Where do you get a load of these two movies, guys? If you watch these, let us know what you thought in the comments.
I think Kurt Sudmak was definitely putting something into what he was doing to achieve something. The Lost Continent,
Yep.
however, failed from the get-go by doing barely anything. I mean, it had a colorful cast of characters, but then it's like they're just traveling.
The actors just weren't enough to keep it the glue to keep it together. I like Cesar Romero, but he's just not watchable
I
enough
like
in this to.
the idea of the Lost Continent because it was sort of, what was going on of the era of like the adventure stuff that they would do. I feel like it's not a continent; it's an island, right? It's
right.
a mountain
Yeah.
on an island. None of that is big enough to be a continent.
Shoot, The Wolfman was better than this. The Wolfman was a better Kurt Sudmak movie than this. The Lost World was a better Lost World movie than this. And those were made 20 to 30 years before. I will tell you that the
So this
50s
has been
are
a
a mixed,
scuffed episode of Cinematic Fantastic.
the 50s are a mixed bag, guys. So I will tell you, there's some really good movies coming up, though. Day the Earth Stood Still, and Think from Another World, and then Invisible Man, and then When Worlds Collide.
I keep thinking it's the Invisible Man next, but then it's just a banger movie.
The Day the Earth Stood Still is my favorite, though, of the two. I like The Thing from Another World. I do think that John Carpenter's The Thing is closer to the story that The Thing from Another World is based off of, but it's still good. They're still really good. Day the Earth Stood Still, though, is a favorite in my mind. Not the remake, but this one's really good. So, all right.
So these were two movies. We checked them out. One was an adventure film. The other was a psychological thriller, technically.
Soap opera.
None of which's plots really kept up. And probably you could want to see Bride of the Gorilla because it's technically like the first Bigfoot film. Mexican Bigfoot. But,
it's a were-gorilla.
just to grab bag, well, as of current recording, it is getting toward October. So, you could consider this
Spooky.
some tricks in your treat bag, or some treats for your treat bag. However you like to think about it.
They're tricks mixed in with the treats. Yeah, we get some treats coming up, so enjoy.
Though everyone knows that, adults' tricks are for kids.
Right. Silly rabbit. Well, silly rabbit, we're going to hop
Silly
off.
Rabbit thinks the adults who are working 9 to 5 can listen to this podcast episode because it's a trick episode. No, they can't. But no, you can. You already did.
You just did, just now.
So
have a good one, guys.
Yeah. You want to say Happy Halloween for this one because it's like October. Getting them
Happy
smooth.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon.